Thank you for tuning into The Truth with Trinity, and I am your host, Trinity. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I'd like to send you a warm welcome. Here I talk about issues that happen within the Black community, hopefully for some resolution or at least some food for thought to go about your daily way. So without further ado, I'd like to jump into this episode's topic, which is why the Stand Your Ground law was never intended for Black people, or why was the Stand Your Ground law really intended for white people, okay? So I wanted to start off with giving a special thanks to all my subscribers and listeners, old and new. It really means a lot to me to think that, it could reach someone that, needs to hear insight or just a different perspective or just for listening in general to give it a chance. And I wanted to talk about us as a people, okay? Black people. And I wanted to give you a question, okay? What is the difference between black people back in the early 1900s and the late 1800s? Okay, so anywhere from, after slavery and, I would say maybe 1980, okay? What's the difference? You want to know what the biggest difference was? And I might go back even earlier than 1980, maybe 1960, okay? What's the difference between the black people then and now? Let me answer that. The difference between black people then and now is black people back then was aware that their life was in danger. They was aware that if they got into a fight with each other that can cause cops to come and kill them, or they could just be walking down the street minding their own business, not even doing anything, just breathing and existing, and that they could be killed. And the difference is now a lot of our people, okay, they've forgotten this. They've bought into this illusion that we're just as free as everyone else in this country, okay, even though they push this illusion on us, okay, but as we can see, the actions are definitely different than the words that they claim are in law, okay. So I want black people to take a different perspective, okay, and how they act in society and how they move about in this American country, okay. And I wanted to make a small disclaimer. There's going to be some touchy things that are brought up in this episode, and if there are some Caucasian people listening, it's not about being racist or it's not about hating white people. It's about talking about the many illnesses and psychotic behaviors that have existed in the Caucasian race. And I understand there are some white people that do try to make a difference. They can't speak for everybody, and they don't go about acting like this, but we cannot excuse the over 50% ratio of Caucasians in this country that have had this passed down to them. And I don't even know if it's genetic or not, but, I can sit and we can talk about, black people's issues all day, which we're going to do, okay? Because I definitely am a firm believer that a lot of the things that we as black people go through, we can solve within our own race of people. But, this does not denote the fact that white people, whether they want to agree with it or not, their ancestors passed down a lot of mental illnesses on their behalf as well. So let me begin. Why the Stand Your Ground law was never intended for black people, okay? When one looks at how America was founded and the declaration and laws put in place, okay, anyone with open eyes and a sound mind clearly understands that the founding fathers made rules that specifically benefited Europeans, and anyone that says otherwise is a liar, okay? Because how could the rules apply to anyone other than Europeans when black people at the time that these rules and emancipation, not the emancipation, but the declaration was invented, black people were slaves at that time, okay? So the rules were not, for black people, okay? And the same rules from back in the 1700s are still in place unaltered, okay? When we talk about the reality and truth of the Stand Your Ground law, this was a law that was put in place for Europeans to be able to murder any Native Americans or people of color attempting to challenge their right or authority to reside in America, okay? So this Stand Your Ground rule is supposed to be if someone steps on your private property, if someone tries to attack you, that you get to kill them regardless of who your race or color is. But we know there's a fine print to that, and anyone that's a person of color definitely knows that, okay? And what it, like I said, what it's really for is for any European to be able to kill off any Native American or black person or person of color that challenges their right to be in this country. um, in America, American homes, American shops, American streets, and all over American soil. So anyone that challenges them on American soil, basically, that's the fine print. Now, with most laws in this country, they give people of color the illusion that these so called laws are to protect them as well, okay, or that they are included. But as with anything in this country, it is a pacifier mind trick to keep black people from responding, reacting, or realizing that the stand your ground law not only does it not apply to black people, but it was indeed created to protect white people from being prosecuted from killing a person of color. Okay, and it also gave them the ability to kill a person of color to their liking whenever they felt like it. Let's look at the many ways that Europeans in America have used the stand your ground law to inflict their mental illnesses off to justify murdering blacks through history, okay? And how it's evolved through time. So let's start off with the colonization era, okay? When Europeans were first visitors, okay, of what they call America now, um they were given a few pieces of land by Native Americans. Then Europeans went back on the treaty, robbed, killed, massacred a whole nation of people, pushed them off to reservations. Okay? The stand your ground law was first put into effect to kill anyone who questioned or challenged their right to North American soil. Okay? Then let's talk about the slavery era and the mental illness of Europeans, okay, throughout history, the psychotic behavior, okay? They used the stand your ground rule to um, burn black people if they had a bad day or just needed enjoyment. So if the white slaveholders and their family were having a bad day, okay, doesn't that sound a little familiar even in 2021? If they're having a bad day or just need a pick me up, they would burn black people or do all sorts of little torturous things to blacks. They cut body parts off of still alive black people, okay? Arms, legs, uteruses, penises, you name it, to amuse their children, women, and guests. And they oftentimes did it arena style. So they would, have an arena set up to do torturous things to blacks. Have lemonade, refreshments. They would sell the skin of blacks. They buckskin. They would carve off the skin of blacks and sell it for purses and little things like that as trinkets and souvenirs. Also, if a black person didn't show enough feelings or were too happy for their liking, they could murder a black person. So a lot of times, because we're talking about the slave era right now, if a black person wasn't sad enough for them, so if the slaveholder announced that something bad happened to them, they expected for the slave to mirror what they were acting, and that's narcissistic, flat out. They can call it whatever, but it's narcissistic. For you to expect someone else to feel like you feel. And for you to kill them if they don't feel the way you feel. Or let's just say something good happened in the slave quarters for a slave. Because slaves lived two different lives. They lived a life in front of the slaveholders and their family, being quiet, submissive, and really having to walk on eggshells. And then even through the oppressive times that blacks lived in slavery, in the slave plantations, they had their own lives. So if something good happened within their family, they had to be quiet about it, because the slaveholder might be sensitive and don't want you to be happy that day, and you can get killed for that, for being just too daggone happy. Okay, so that happened too. So there was always an excuse why a black person could end up killed. Okay, if they simply disliked the said black person or just wanted them dead. Okay, they could make an excuse that the said black person in question stole something. Hey, they stole my hat, my cigar. They stole my parasol. Okay, backtalked, or did some kind of criminal act, okay? And I want to stop right here. This is part of the reason, okay, why a lot of mentally ill Caucasians in this country, they will use an excuse to kill you if you backtalk. Now, if another white person backtalked them, they wouldn't get killed. But in their head, it's been passed down from their ancestors that no black person should ever. They're inferior. So if they backtalk you, this is an excuse to kill them or to beat them or do something heinous. Okay, and a lot of white people, they won't admit to this. This is their dealings. This is how they deal, and this is how they think about people of color, which is part of the problem in this country. Okay, the reason why many Caucasians are taught that all blacks are criminals is to, okay, so a lot of Caucasians, okay, not all Caucasians, I'm not saying every white person was taught this in their home, okay, but a lot of them were taught to think of black people as criminals, okay, for to deflect from their own current and historical criminal acts upon humanity itself. So, we're like the whipping boy for white people, excuse me. So black people as a whole are like the whipping boy or girl for white people's monstrosities and their criminal acts. So if they commit a criminal act, they like to brush it off on blacks as like all blacks are criminals to deflect from their criminal activities. Also, B, and to dehumanize people of color, to be able to kill them more easily, which in itself is a psychotic mental illness. Okay? For example, if I'm white, it doesn't matter if I lie to get a person of color killed or kill a person of color myself because, after all blacks are guilty. And guilty people are criminals, and criminals should be treated like less than animals. Okay, so this is the psychosis of the mental disorder of a lot of Caucasians in this country. This is how they feel. So that's how they're able to justify, oh, if they would have been following the law, they shouldn't have gotten killed. They wouldn't have gotten killed. Or, oh, if they didn't pull out their cell phone, they wouldn't have gotten shot. Because they have to make a way to justify for their fellow man or their self their own mental illness on why they could carry out such sick behavior, and it's supposed to be normalized. Okay, let's talk about 2021. Okay, so a lot of people say that's history, especially a lot of Caucasians, they'll say that's history, but just like with black people, a lot of behaviors that black people have derived back from slavery, so do a lot of Caucasians, in this country, from their ancestors as well. So let's talk about 2021. Okay, while I truly believe that there are some Caucasians that are trying to reject some of the psychotic behavior, um, or all ill concepts of their ancestors, yet there are still too many that hide under the guise of a normal citizen, who, even worse, has daily interactions with people of color, such as police officers, teachers, nurses, doctors, store clerks, fast food personnel, etc. So there, it's one thing for them not to like black people, to want to hurt and kill and poison and torture black people. But a lot of them are under the guise of normal citizens, and they're saturated throughout the American country, and they have service and they have interactions daily with people of color. Okay, and that's scary. But I like for black women, men, and children to listen up and listen very carefully. Okay, the minute you can fully understand and know the underlying meanings and fine print of American law, and how blacks are gaslit to believe an illusion that these particular rules apply to all instead of in reality just them. So black people can really sober up, okay, if they realize that when they say all, freedom and justice for all, and all these laws, they'll say and swear it's for everybody, but as you can see, when it boils down to it, it's for just them. And the sooner black people can realize that, they can stop clowning around. Black people, we can stop doing some of the things that we do, and we can stop spending our time, in situations that are not going to be beneficial to us as black people. That's the sooner we realize that, and that's the sooner that we can sober up. The sooner black people can stop fighting in public stores and restaurants. Okay? All this fighting and this being a rite of passage in the hood for us to beat up our own people, and, oh, I'm hard, I'm tough because I just beat somebody up. There doesn't take any amount of intelligence to go fight someone. It doesn't take any intelligence at all. It takes strength, like brute strength, like a muscular strength. but it takes none of your brain to go out and fight. And that's one thing that they always say about blacks, that blacks are like slaves, and slaves can use their muscles because they're strong like oxes, but they don't have any mindset. And that's exactly what you prove to especially people who want to believe this. Okay, despite there being other intelligent black people, you prove their point though. The ones that want to believe black people are ignorant, you're proving that point every time we're videotaped, every time we're caught, every time we're arrested for fighting our own people. And it makes us look even sillier when we try to say, hey, stop killing our people. We tell white people to stop killing our people, but here we are killing our own people. So it makes us look that much less irrelevant for doing that. Because also, this gives white nationalists, okay, a reason to kill you. They will say that you had other civilians' lives in danger. Okay? So I'm not saying that all white cops are racist, and I'm not saying that they all, have ill intent, but let's face it. A lot of white nationalists and KKK and these organizations, they do join because they know that policing was built on killing black people, and keeping them in check in this country. And they now just kind of made it to where they're protecting everyone, and they know they can get away with it under the law more than any race can within the police departments. And what you do when you sit out there and fight, you're giving them to the excuse to pop a cap in you. Every time you're exposing yourself. Now we know that you don't have to be doing anything as a black person to get killed, but you're making it 10 times that more easily for them to come in and kill you though. Okay? The sooner that black people can stop following this illusion that the cops are here to serve and protect you. Because I heard a lot of people saying that in the comments on other, channels that, oh, the same people that are supposed to protect us are killing us. Well, that's the illusion right there, that you thought that the cops, they'll say it in fine print, not fine print, but they'll say it, blanket statement, we're here to protect everyone. They take an oath, but who knows what the real secret oaths are behind closed doors, between within organizations that say, hey, kill as many of them as you can, boy. You're doing a good job. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying, though. Black people need to start thinking about that. That maybe not every cop is out there to protect you. Okay? When their real job is to serve and protect whom they truly see as the real citizens of this country, which are Europeans. Okay? The sooner black people can stop making situations where it will attract, that black people can stop making situations where it will attract racist cops who are all too eager to rectify the situation by placing a bullet in your head. So we already know that you don't have to be doing anything in this country at times. They can place drugs on you and say, hey, you're a drug dealer, here's 20 years. They've been doing this for years, okay? We know that. You can sneeze the wrong way and they could say they feared for their life and they could kill you. But what black people need to stop doing is using that as an excuse, though, to continue their foolishness, though, and making it to where they attract. It's almost like blood, cutting yourself in a sea, and there's sharks going to be attracted to you, So we can do our part, and be aware of this. Like, hey, and one other thing. America doesn't care that you videotape their mental illness or psychotic behavior of bloodshed on camera. Okay, they don't care, they get really angry. And it's not about them getting really angry. I'm talking about the judges and stuff that have to prosecute their own white brother and his sister and for this. They don't care that it's on camera. This type of behavior from a great deal, so not all Europeans, but Caucasians, a great deal of them in this country have been able to get off their psychotic behavior on black people for a very long time. Before cameras existed, they could, the things that we're catching on camera, a cop, pistol whipping or killing a black person before it was ever caught on tape, the white cop could say, oh, that black boy or that black girl tried to punch me. I had to kill him. And that was it, until it was on camera that, hey, they didn't even raise their hand to you. You just pulled the trigger. That's happening a lot. I'm not saying that's in all situations, but that's happening a great deal in this country, and it's caught on camera, but they still don't care. They still like to make it disappear. They will also justify a reason that the murder was justified, all to save their fellow American. And that fellow American really doesn't include people of color. Okay, so if it's to save their people, I hate to say this, and if it's to save a white person's family from being destroyed, from one of them being put in jail that destroys their finances, do you think? Let's think about that when we talk about the weight of the law. Do you think a white judge is really going to destroy or wants to destroy a white family because they know what that does if the white father's put in jail or, being sued or something? They would rather say it doesn't exist, even if it's on camera. They would rather say it does not exist to save that white family. And black people, they need to, quite honestly, we can be upset at that, but we need to start looking at our own lives like that. In one aspect, we can say, hey, that's really upsetting. That is, because it should be fair if they're saying that things are really fair. But black people need to start looking out and having their own complexion for their own protection. Okay, we need to stop turning against each other so much. Why would we think another race of people is going to look out for us more than they look out for themselves? And what is it about black people that we still have this slavery servant mentality that we should look out for massa, that we should look out for white people more than we look out for ourselves? So I'm not saying that you shouldn't, be nice to everyone, but we should stop complaining that other people don't look out for us more than we should look out for ourselves. We're no longer slaves, you know? Um, Let me continue. The sooner black women and men understand this, the sooner that black people can step out of the matrix of illusions. I also encourage black men and women not to break out into fights. Okay, stop doing that. I understand that we have disagreements and stuff, and I'm not saying other races of people don't fight, but we glorify it in our communities. We do. Let's be honest. In our communities, we glorify this fighting amongst each other. We videotape it. We get excited and all this. And all this does is cause cops. Some of them may be kosher cops, and some of them, hey, they might be from the Klanman Ranch, and they can't wait to justify to see you fighting so they can say, hey, I had to break up the fight, and their way of breaking up the fight was killing you. Okay? Not to excuse me, to learn how to handle disputes amongst ourselves. That's what we need to do as black people. It takes more intelligence to talk and dialogue, okay, and find a way, okay, versus just to break out into a fight. Be less quick to cause disturbances out in public, because that's sending an image about black people, that we claim that we're not this or uncivilized, but it's just being promoted right on TV and everywhere. I encourage more black people to go get an education, okay? Spend our time doing less things that are not going to benefit us, okay? Picking up and reading a book. Black women and men picking up a book to read with your children, educating them that instead of being a drug dealer or instead of being a stripper or a twerker, that they can go to school and become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a judge to be able to help more people of color. Okay, because being drug dealers and strippers and twerkers, they're okay with that because it's not going to help us as black people. It's going to keep us going further down the drain, okay? And also do what you have to do with these cops and keep it moving. I understand that some of your dignity might be a little hurt and might feel like, they felt a little superior and you're inferior, especially even with the cops that aren't kosher. They didn't did, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you should lay down and die, but if it's a difference between you just being quiet and saying yes sir, no sir, and I'm placing my hand on the wheel, sir, let me get my ID out, sir, you might feel like you're talking to them like they're an overseer, but at least your life is still intact. And I'm not saying that's going to work all of the time because some of them are itching to breathe to kill you. But the thing is, you need to have that in mind though. So before you start back talking, and let's come to the grips that you're not white. Okay, I'm not saying that we're less than white people, not at all. But the fact that you should have the mindset when you come across, especially a cop that seems like they have that demeanor, that you're not white and that they're not going to sit and talk with you or they're not going to sit and wrestle with you. If you know what I mean? You're not one of their white brethren. You need to just go ahead and do what you need to do so you can get out of that situation and live another day if possible, okay? Because quite honestly, I hate to say it, but some Aryans are looking for an excuse to provoke an argument just to kill you under the guise of feeling threatened, okay? Which has been the go-to phrase of racist Caucasians for years to justify and walk away from murder with their family and their lives intact, okay? So we know this is a well-known go-to for a lot of Caucasians who are racist, okay? I'm not saying that white people never have their lives in danger, but let's face it, this has been a go to for centuries for white people against black people to be able to say, my life was in danger. That's all they have to say in case dismissed. That's it, because that's part of the racist system that exists in this country, quite honestly. Lastly, why do black people keep asking for an excuse or rationale response as to why the Caucasians that do act this way continue to do so? Why do we keep asking? I don't understand it, quite honestly, when in reality, they are not sorry. When the only thing they are truly sorry about is not killing enough people of color. That and which is called the true definition of the stand your ground law. And I honestly believe that, when black people come to realize this, to stop saying why are we being treated this way, to not keep asking yourself the questions you already know the answer to, because once we do that as black people, then we can move accordingly, okay, to more independent thinking. And if things don't work out in this country, maybe we can get out of here. I don't know. But I wanted to add on too about the stand your ground, which is what's going on right here in the United States, basically. That pretty much wraps up this segment. I thank you for listening. Let me know if you're listening in YouTube land. Let me know what you think down in the comments section. I like for this world to be a better place. I would like for everyone to be able to get along, white and black and Chinese. But hey, I mean, how are we going to get along, or how are things going to change if the reality is not brought to the forefront with people willing to change, I'd say. Um, if this is your first time listening, or if you'd like to hear more content when it becomes available, you can hit the subscribe or notification. If you'd like to share with other people, you can hit the share button. If you'd like to ask a question, if you have any suggestions, if you'd like to make a financial contribution, you can at thetruthwithtrinity.com. You can also listen to my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor. And always remember, if you can't tell the truth with anyone else, you can with Trinity. Till next time, take care.